It is my pleasure to introduce to you Karina Castillo. Karina is the president and founder of Casma Consulting, as well as serving as Florida field consultant and Latino outreach organizer for Moms Clean Air Task Force. Moms Clean Air Force. With a scientific background in weather, climate, and its impact on society, Karina has worked with organizations such as the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, otherwise known as NOAA, and for the Miami-Dade County Office of Emergency Management. Karina is a highly respected community leader, educating and engaging diverse audiences on climate change, particularly in the highly vulnerable South Florida region. Karina joins us now to share her insights on how the deeply rooted cultural value of conservation influences Latinos' views on global climate change and their willingness to act on climate. Please join me in welcoming Christina. Thank you, Karina.
Wow. Hi, everyone. Is the mic on? Okay. So as was mentioned, my name is Karina Castillo. I come from sunny, hot, humid Miami, Florida. Right now, over the weekend, it was 90 degrees and it was miserable. But there we go, that's where I'm from. I was actually born in New Orleans, Louisiana. So I like to tell people that I come from two of the most climate vulnerable cities in the country, if not in the world. So I come from the bayous of New Orleans, but live in Miami. Very culturally diverse. I wanted to start off talking to you a little bit about my motivation. I'm a meteorologist, but working at NOAA, I realized that I wanted to do a little bit more than sitting behind a computer desk and talking to people and forecasting what the weather was going to be tomorrow or the day after. I wanted to translate about this science because I found it so exciting. Thanks to my dad, I've really always had an interest in math and science. So I went back to school and got my degree in, all right, let's learn how to get all this complex science, because it is complex, and put it into consumable nuggets that everyone can understand, including elected officials, general community members, and even kids. So why do I do what I do, besides my love of math and science? I do it for these people here and these pictures. These are not my children. These are mine, and I didn't, just get the picture off the internet. These are my nieces from your left to right. That's Valentina, Victoria, and Louis. They're why I do what I do, and hopefully, for any future children I decide to have. I want them to have something better than what I have. And I love to travel, so I want them to see the same beautiful, marvelous places that this planet has to offer that I've seen, and hopefully more, because I'm always telling them, travel, 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 because you learn so much. So from here, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the reasons why environmentalism, conservationism, and action on climate are inherent in the Latino culture. While we don't necessarily identify as environmentalists, we are already doing it. It's because it's already a part of who we are, and because we're already doing everything that is good for the environment. In our culture, and you could probably trace this back to the indigenous roots and a lot of us from Latin America, we have a deep respect for Mother Earth, or for Tierra Madre, or for Pachamama, or Sachamama, depending on where you're coming from, that's what you call it. And it's this respect for knowing that the earth is going to give unto you what you give it, and it's going to give you all that is necessary. It's a little mythical and a little bit religious, but that's how we view Mother Earth. And we understand that we have to respect it, and that it'll give you what you need, as I said before. And no more was that more evident right now for me in a recent trip in which I went to my native country of Nicaragua. I had never been, it was my first time. And I went in time, if you're following the news. And I went to this market. It's called, for short, El Huembes, but it's Mercado Roberto Huembes. And this is in Managua, Nicaragua. And I went there, and you can get everything, anything you can imagine you can buy there, even car parts. I was really surprised by that. But in this particular section of the market, They sell fresh meat, fresh cheeses, and of course, the rice and beans for our famous gallo pinto. That is a staple for breakfast, lunch, and dinner every single day. So I think sitting there and observing, besides buying some things as well, I saw that people aren't doing what we do here in the United States, and I'm going to include myself in that. We fill up our shopping carts when we go to the grocery store, and we fill up our refrigerators, and we fill up our freezers. So we're only getting, and these people in the market in Latin American countries are only getting what they need for the next couple days or for the next week. And so it's back to this inherent value in us of conservation. We're not going to live beyond excess. We're not going to live in excess. We're not going to live beyond what we need in the immediate future. And so that really influences how we view and how we act and what policies we support. But coming back to the United States, I like to say that we, Latinos in the United States, are really transnational citizens. Because like I just mentioned, I've been on my phone for the past couple days, nonstop on Twitter and in the newspaper from my home country, following what's happening over there. There's civil unrest right now. But not only that, I'm also aware of families and friends and places that I love over there. In the northern region of Nicaragua, there's a lot of coffee farming. Some of you may know that. But when I hear from families that own those coffee farms that they're not getting the same yields from before because of extreme prolonged drought, I understand. And they ask me, why is this happening? And I'm able to connect the dots and be like, well, we can expect more prolonged droughts in the northern part of Nicaragua in a changing climate. And so, of course, that prompts me and every other person from Latin America who are already seeing the climate impacts to want to support policies that will change or lessen the impact in our countries. But in the United States, we're connected to what's happening in Latin America in terms of climate impacts. But in the United States, we live in more than half of us live in 3 states that are already living with the lived reality of climate change. It's affecting where we live, where we work, and where we play. So we live in the 3 states. Like I mentioned, I'm from Florida. And I can tell you that in the spring and in the fall, we're getting what we call king tides. And that's water coming over and inundating our streets. But because Florida is special geology, we also have it coming up through our sewer system. And I can tell you, living in Florida, South Florida, for as long as I have, there's places that are flooding now that did not flood before. So we can directly attribute that to sea level rise and, of course, greenhouse gas emissions. In Texas, we've heard about the drought and then, of course, the intense rainfall recently with one of the hurricanes. And then in California, I don't even have to tell you about wildfire season and the prolonged drought, too. So it's affecting, obviously, where we live. It's affecting where we work, because the majority of Latinos have work in the agriculture and construction industry. And of course, that climate impacts that directly. And then also where we play, because I love the beach. I live in Florida. I love the beach. I go out there and I play. I live, in Florida. That's part of who we are, going to the beach and being outside, bearing the crazy humidity. And I'm sure that you guys, wherever you live, also love your community and want to do anything you can to protect it and take action on climate. So, all right, okay, she's talking about all this stuff from who she is, her experience, and all that stuff. But this is some polling that came out of the Yale Project on Climate Communication. This was a report that came out last year. And it's basically underscoring the fact that we know that a majority of Latinos know that climate change is happening, that it's here, that it's real, that it's impacting our communities now. And so if you look at it, it's not that like we're just worried. There's a big part of us that are very worried and are willing to take action. But then, like I said, we're experiencing it right now. Another thing that I wanted to note is that the average age of Latinos in the United States is 27.2. So it's a younger demographic. And as been said before on some of the panels and some of the sessions, we know that younger generations already kind of come with this mindset of preservation and acting on climate and holding sustainability in high regard in terms of who they want to work for and how they live their lives. But then also, we know that we we know that we hold power as a consumer, as a Latino consumer. We're gonna use our dollars, and we're gonna use our voices, and we're gonna use our power to support companies, elected officials, policies, community leaders who are taking action on climate because it's a cultural value for us. It's directly impacting me now, so I'm not gonna buy the product from that specific company because it doesn't support the policy, it doesn't reflect the culture that I love and the culture that I'm a part of. I wanted to also give another example right now of thinking back to my grandmother. I grew up in a household, like many Latinos, where we live with our grandparents. So it was my two other sisters, myself, my mom, my dad, and my grandmother. And I can just picture her now with her hand on her hip and the finger, and of course that stare, saying, "You better not waste anything because that's bad. It's evil, and you have to reuse everything." So if you opened up our refrigerator when I was younger, you would see a lot of tubs of different things and, for example, butter containers. And a normal person walking into the house would probably be like, why do they have so much butter? But it wasn't butter. We were reusing it for storage. Or if you know those cans that come with soda crackers in them, the aluminum or tin cans, once we were done with that, you better believe that there was rice and beans in that, or spices. So it was just, I didn't find it odd because, of course, I grew up thinking that was normal. Everybody should do that. So that's just the sort of things that if we didn't reuse or we didn't use everything that we had, or, for example, if you didn't use the bones of the meat that we were using to make a stock, then you were getting that finger and that hand on the hip, and that, oh my gosh, how dare you waste? So it's these things that we all grew up in my culture, is that we see it as normal. So of course, it's no wonder that we want to take action on climate, because we understand that it's a threat to us and that it's happening now. Plus, we look at it also as like a win-win situation. We know that if we're cleaning up the air in our communities, that it has direct co-benefits for our health. Or if we're implementing solutions like renewable energy in our communities, that has the potential for jobs. And also because it's a legacy issue. We want to do better. I told you that my motivation were my two nieces and my nephew. A lot of Latino people that have come to this country know that they've sacrificed a lot to come here. A lot have left a lot of good things in their countries. I know that my family was kind of forced out of the country from one day to the next. And so we want our children and our grandchildren and the grandchildren and their grandchildren to have a better life for themselves. But also, we operate just because it's the right thing to do. It's like our grandmother or Mother Earth is with that hand on the hip and the finger pointing, saying, you have to take care of me. You have to act on climate because it's important and it's the right thing to do. And also, another really, really quickly to note is that if you listen to Spanish language media, if you watch it on TV or you read the newspapers, it's not really presented with this idea that there's no consensus. It's just talked about, and it's more about telling the stories, and it's more about exploring how it's impacting different communities. So that's another reason that there's not this conversation. I'm not positive of this, but I don't think there's that Heritage Foundation materials in Spanish with the disinformation. I don't think so. I'll look it up after, but I don't think that exists, or sending out to teachers. So it's a matter of fact thing, and our culture and our values support that. And so I wanted to close by asking you to think about your motivation, as a person in your family, as a community member, as a representative of your company, or as an investor. What is your motivation? What are your values? Is it your mission? And how do you use that motivation to scale up what you're already doing? And so, again, reflect on that as I leave you. And again, thank you. I'm so honored to be part of this inaugural World Series talks, and I hope to talk with some of you afterwards. Thank you so much.